Welcome to Fire Drill Podcast, where side hustles, savings, and creativity lead to financial independence. With your hosts, Gwen from Fiery Millennials and Jay from Millennial Boss.
Welcome to another episode of Fire Drill Podcast. We have Sarah, a fiery female fire friend, on the show today, who is anonymous. So we will call her Sarah, which is a very, very common name. In this episode, we chat about working overseas, geographic arbitrage, biological clocks, and fire. And I have my wonderful co-host Gwen here as well.
Hey.
So Sarah, why don't you start by introducing yourself?
Okay. I am Sarah. I live and work in Silicon Valley, but I've had a pretty interesting path to how I got here and a pretty interesting path to FI. I've spent most of my career in construction and with 2 stints internationally, one for about 6 months and one for 2 years. That's taken me through a lot of travel. And then pretty recently in 2014, transferred out of construction and into the Silicon Valley lifestyle.
That's awesome. So I think I'm really curious to talk about your experiences abroad. But first, why don't we start with, how did you come to even know about fire?
I learned about fire in, I guess, 2009 or 2010 through Mr. Money Mustache and Get Rich Slowly, and started reading in on financial independence blogs and about savings and budgeting and investing, etc. So really, when I started getting my first paycheck, I started doing a lot of research on what to do with that, and found the financial blogs.
Did you dive in right away, or is it something that you sat on for a little bit and then revisited?
I sat on it for about a year, and then I really started tracking my spending and working on my input and looking for feedback in January of 2010.
That's awesome. So it took me probably maybe even 2 years, but I had a coworker that I'd known about Mr. Money Mustache. I went down the binge reading path, and then somehow I got off the path and started on the lifestyle accumulation bout. But I went on a work trip with a coworker, and somebody was ragging on him he had holes in his shoes or something like that, and everyone was teasing him. And afterwards, I'm like, but he really defended himself and his whole frugal lifestyle. And I told him, I was like, hey, there's a blog out there that kind of reminds me of some of the things that you're talking about. And that was it. And then it turns out 4 months later, he talks to me and he's like, yeah, I've calculated my FI date. I'm going to be early retired in 5 years. And it blew my mind. And then I realized, what am I doing with my life? I need to figure this out too.
See, I don't know though. For me, it didn't take too long for me to get into it. Like, I was still in college when I found this lifestyle. So I couldn't do much because I didn't have much money coming in, but it definitely helped me make wise decisions when I got out. I didn't buy a house. I didn't buy a new car. I didn't go crazy. I just, lived within my means and then just started saving all of it. So I don't know, like all this like waiting. I was chomping at the bit, like, come on, let's go. I want to get these paychecks and start rolling them in.
Yeah, I've always been into saving. And really it helped me to track. And I'm absolutely still a member of the FI kind of lurker community. I don't have a blog. I don't have a Twitter, and I don't really comment. So I just read and take it in and do with it as I please. I've never turned that into anything. Although I would love to, I've just never been willing to make that time commitment. But I'm definitely more of the like make more rather than spend less side. I'm fairly frugal, but don't really subscribe to much of a budget, more of a tracking and just understanding where everything's going. So always on the look to make more rather than spend less, unfortunately.
No, I'm just like that.
The upside is way bigger for making more. I mean, there's only so much you can cut out, but the sky's the limit when it comes to earning more money.
Yeah.
Totally. So have you calculated, I'm sure you've calculated your fire date and you've used spreadsheets and all that. How far away are you?
I've done it a few times. Right now, I think I'm about 7 years away. So I'll be 37. I just turned 30.
Sweet.
Happy belated birthday.
Thank you. But at one point, I was as low as 32, and then I changed my lifestyle. So it's kind of gone up and down.
So you're saying that this is a flexible concept? It's not like set in stone. Like once you say I'm retiring at 33, you're done. You can't work anymore past that?
No, Exactly. It's very flexible. I'm really not sure that I want to retire young. It's much more of, I think somebody, I don't know which person calls it like FU money. I just want to be able to walk away when I want to. I'm not really sure what I'm looking for, but I want the freedom to be able to go and do whatever I want to when I want to. So it's less tied to the date and more tied to like watching my lifestyle and allowing me to walk away whenever I want.
That's pretty powerful. And that's how I feel too. So I genuinely enjoy work. So I never see a world where I am not working by choice, and whether the work is in a traditional form or not. But I like having the power to do that. And we've had a lot of people come on the show who had unexpected health issues, or their significant other had unexpected health issues. So thinking of things like that, a fire appeals to me even more.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so let's dig in a little bit to your experience working overseas. Do you mind telling us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So I actually started my career overseas in 2008 and did a 6-month stint in England in construction. Then that was pretty quick. It was much more of kind of like a long extended business trip. I came back to the U.S. and worked domestically for 4 years, really started building up my savings here and building up my network. And then in 2012, I moved back overseas to South America, and I worked there for 25 months. I was in a construction job living on a camp. So it was me and 17,000 men. It was very interesting. And living overseas has great perks. The schedule was very flexible. It was a really unique schedule. So I know you know a little bit about this, but I was on an 18 by 10 schedule. So I worked 18 days straight, 12 hours a day, and then I got 10 off. So every 28 days, I was allowed a 10-day vacation anywhere in the world, which was pretty awesome. Wow. So in 25 months, I went to 27 countries with 2 of my best friends.
All right, I'm officially jealous.
Yeah, it was great. In that time, I did all 7 continents. So that was our first goal. Very first trip was Antarctica. We knocked out the 7 continents. And then we did like all the big festivals. We did Running of the Bulls and the Tomato Festival and Oktoberfest. And then we just hit other bucket list kind of places. So I was able to see a lot of the world and pay for none of it, which was pretty amazing. But it was a wild 2 years. I lived, in a trailer on a construction camp in the desert, had no refrigerator, no TV, no laundry machine, cleaned all my clothes in the shower with a bar of soap. So there's always pros and cons. Nobody sees the real world on Instagram. But it was amazing. And it was also amazing for FI because working internationally, the first 110,000, give or take a few, are tax-free if you don't come back into the U.S. more than 30 days a year. So I definitely stayed out and didn't pay taxes on that portion. And while I was living there, I had sold my house, I had sold my car, I didn't have a phone, I didn't have any bills to my name. So it was really affordable, got to pretty much save everything and not pay taxes on a portion of it. So when I left South America, my FI was only like 4 years away. So if I would have stayed, I could have retired in 4 years. But I chose to transition back to the U.S. into a different corporate atmosphere.
Did you get any special pay because you were overseas in a mining camp?
I did. I got 30% hazard pay. So I had my standard salary and then 30% on top of that, plus, of course, room and board.
So this sounds like an FI person's dream right now.
Paradise.
Yeah, and I know, Gwen, you really want to get an overseas position.
Oh, I would love that so much.
Do you have any recommendations on how someone can do that within their own company?
Yeah, I got in with the company here in the U.S. So I was I had already built credibility. And then it just came time to transition. So my company was project-based, and I think that helped. So as my project here in the U.S. was winding down, it was time to look for something new, and I just expressed an interest in going overseas. They gave me a few countries to choose from. And I did evaluate not only the situation in the country, but also that hazard pay and the tax situation and the schedule situation. So I think getting in here is pretty critical, and then moving abroad, and that helps immensely. You are not dependent upon visas and things, and your company will take care of that.
Okay, so I mean that all sounds amazing. 30% pay, and you get paid trips everywhere. Obviously, living in a trailer without very many amenities. I would have issues living without a washer and dryer. I mean, I don't have one in my unit right now, and I think that's pretty terrible. Even though there's a laundromat like a half mile away, so I don't even know how I would be able to handle washing my clothes in the shower with a bar of soap. But were there any other issues that popped up that surprised you? It must have been pretty difficult being one of the very few women on a mining camp.
Yeah, that turned out to be okay. I lucked into the fact that one of my best friends, who actually I still work with and I've worked with for the last 8 years, also traveled with me. So we moved there together, which was great. I never felt, alone or that loneliness issue. But there are interesting situations. Working in another language is very difficult. So although I spoke the language minimally, it's hard to follow meetings where everyone else is speaking natively and with a very quick tone. So that can be unique and definitely something to adapt to. As a female, it's also worth looking into how females are respected in the workplace when you travel internationally. So you can run into issues like that. I saw a little bit of it. I know others see more. So, a female coming into a construction environment in a foreign country sometimes doesn't get the respect that you would get here in the U.S.
Sad, but it makes sense.
Yeah.
Why did you want to leave? Why did you want to come back to the U.S.?
Part of it most of it was by choice. Ultimately, my project was winding down, so I probably could have gotten another maybe 8 months out of that situation, but eventually it was going to end because it is project-based work. It comes to a close. I could have transitioned to another country, but I was really ready to get back to having a bed and having a refrigerator and being closer to my friends and family, having some freedom. I think there's always a degree of the grass is always greener, but also I think change is good. So at this point, I would probably go back to international, but I think that flexibility of rotating back and forth keeps it new and fun. You get burnt out on any lifestyle, I think. But I was ready to have some freedom and to have a home. I actually met my husband in South America, so I brought him back with me. But ultimately, my entire friend group all came back together. So within a few months, we all left South America. And by one means or another, we've all made it back here and are living very close together again. So most of my network was gone and the project was coming to a close. There wasn't much work left for me.
Wow. So you met your husband when you were down there. How did you guys meet?
We met at work. So he was in a different office than me, but he was also working on the same project as an engineer.
Oh, cool. So you were working in an office. You were getting hazard pay, but it wasn't like you were down doing anything too hazardous.
Actually, he was in the office, but I was on the job site the whole time. So
Woohoo, I like that. That's awesome. Okay, cool. So is he on board with the whole fire thing?
He is. He definitely got a later start. Different cultures handle money differently, and salaries are definitely different. So he got a later start than me, but ever since he moved here, he's been pretty much on board. Luckily, he got the right work visas and the green card and found an awesome job. So now he's up and running and probably didn't have much of a choice. I think he got his first salary and I was like, okay, this goes to your 401k and this goes to your Roth and here's what you have left. And so I think I took control, but he's very much on board. At the same time, he is more into like the cars and the clothes and some things than me. So we try and manage that balance together.
Do you guys have different dates for FI or would you do this together?
We are calculating everything together. I'm not sure if or when we would ever retire together, but we are calculating it all together.
Cool. Yeah, my husband and I think I will maybe be early retired and he will not by choice because he loves his job. And I like my job too, but he has one of those passion careers, so it's just a different thing.
Yeah, neither of us have a passion career. We generally like it, but I'm here to get paid.
Yep.
I'm right there with you.
I love that.
Give me my paycheck and I'm out of here.
So if you don't mind us asking, how do you guys do your finances?
We have separate accounts and then a joint account. Same thing for credit cards. We each have a separate credit card and a joint credit card. But frankly speaking, I track every dollar I spend. And I also track every dollar he spends because I just can't not. It would just drive me crazy. So he's gracious enough to give me kind of open books. And so although I don't try not to judge what he spends and vice versa, I manage both accounts.
Got it. Yeah, we have separate accounts and a joint account as well. Gwen, what's it like on the dating front? I know you're dating another member of the fire community. How do you guys even pay for dates?
Well, we usually split things halvesies. So, okay, we're in a long distance relationship, which just makes it even more complicated. So usually what happens is the person who drove doesn't pay. So the person in their home base pays. And then, because the person that's driving spends like $60 on gas to get there and back. So we figure it's about even. And honestly, we're not that worried about it because we figure it's all just going to even itself out in the future anyway. So, and I think that we both recognize that it would cause a little bit of strife to be like, okay, well, I paid $20 for lunch and you paid $30 for mini golf, so I'm going to owe you $10. Like, we just call it even.
Yeah, it's on the week.
Although sometimes it's really funny because we'll like fight over who pays the bill. Because if we're like, okay, come on, give it. I want to. No, I get it. And it's like, okay, well, you can do it this time. I'll pay next time. Okay.
You guys do the cute little check dance?
Well, it's more like a check arm wrestle, but yeah.
Nice.
We do everything based on percent, though. So whoever's making more at the time, instead of doing half and half, it's all based on percent so that everybody kind of feels the same amount of pain.
Oh, okay. That's cool. That's a cool way to do it.
Yeah, and I would do that. I would probably do that if we were, married or living together. But since we've only been dating for 6 weeks, we're not quite at that point, and we earn a very similar amount of money. So half and half works pretty much equally.
So Sarah, what does FI look like for you in terms of lifestyle?
I'm really not sure. So that's something I kind of struggle with is I'm working towards this goal, but at the same time, I don't know what it looks like. I struggle with the fact I don't really have very many hobbies except for traveling. And, traveling's great, but eventually you need something to fill the days. So I'm not sure. As a young woman, I'm also trying to decide if and when I have children and whether I'd want to be home with them or not. So that's kind of a factor. I'm trying to earn as much as I can as quickly as I can so that I at least have the option if I opt to stay home.
Yes. Amen.
Okay, let's go down this route right now because I have been having these little anxiety moments where I decide that I didn't realize I was old and I suddenly got old and then it's like, wait, I need to have kids, but I don't want to because I want to hit FI first. But then is it totally going to blow my FI if I have all these responsibilities? And do I even need to have children, but I want to have children? How do you guys feel about that?
You go, Sarah.
Oh, I'm just a big question mark. I have no idea. I don't know if I want to or if I need to or when or I don't even know if or how and what that will look like. Part of me thinks I'll work for a couple years when they're really small and then maybe take off from 3 to 6 because I feel like that's a pretty critical age. But honestly, I have no idea. So I'm kind of in the mad rush or the mad dash that's get as high as I can in my company and make as much as I can now so that I can level off a little and be a good mother because the amount of work I do right now, I would be a terrible mother. So that's my passion is just get as much as I can so I have the options.
Yeah, and I think that's where I'm at right now as well. I'm leaning towards I'm probably going to be more or less a stay-at-home mom with a couple of kids, which I didn't necessarily see myself going down that path, but I can't say that I would complain. So I think what it's going to look like now is I'm going to work for a while longer and then kind of ease into being an entrepreneur and then kind of mix that with being a stay-at-home mom. So I want to do things in the art realm. I want to work on stained glass and carpentry and pottery and all sorts of other things. And I feel like I could still be creative while having kids at home.
Yeah.
So I kind of like ease into it, kind of.
In some ways, I wish I was further along towards the path to FI because I feel like I need to continue to work and build and grow my career right now. But I'm also very aware that if I wait too long, the window may close. And I'm pretty on the young side of the window, so that's not true, but just something that's present in my mind.
Hear that tick, 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 tick.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, okay. So, question mark. Love to hear from listeners. Tweet at us, guys. Tell us how you feel about this topic. Awesome.
We can start a thread on our private Facebook group. If you're not a member, you should definitely join.
We should do that. Okay, cool. So what FI blogs or pieces of financial media do you consume right now?
Oh, I think I listen to all the podcasts. And I read a lot of the blogs. I still read Mr. Money Mustache and Afford Anything. I'm starting to pick up a couple properties, so learning a lot there. And I don't know what else I listen to.
Let's chat about your properties. So tell us a little more about that.
Just getting into that. So been working with a couple realtors in Colorado and also in Tahoe. So my husband and I tend to drive to Tahoe a couple times a month, no matter the season. So looking to pick up a property there for Airbnb, maybe 3 weekends a month, and then staying in it ourselves 1 weekend a month, versus the property in Colorado, we're looking for long-term renters.
I was actually thinking about when I lived in the Bay Area, thinking about getting a Tahoe property in South Lake Tahoe. So you can get one for like $100 and something, or at least when I was looking last year. I don't know what it is this year.
Yeah, they're not too bad. We go in the winter to ski, and then we go in the summer to mountain bike. So
yeah, do you go to South though?
Unfortunately, we go north usually.
Yeah, because South Lake Tahoe, apparently people like that because of the casinos. I just don't know if that's a good vibe or not. I haven't been there. But Colorado, definitely. I also have a property in Colorado too.
Oh yeah, okay. Colorado Springs, right?
Yeah, Colorado Springs. But I love Colorado so much. Do you go there?
You people in your mountains. Ugh, I'm so jealous.
Mountains are the best.
I know that.
I love being outdoors. Yeah, what are you doing in the Midwest right now?
Dying.
I'm from the Midwest. It's fine.
So, do you have any side hustles or anything you have going on in addition?
No, I don't have any side hustles. I feel a lot of, FI shame on that. But I've looked into a couple of things, and it definitely piques my interest, but I've never found the time to set aside for it. And I know that's kind of like the cop-out. There's always time for everything, but I really just never have. So I spend most of my time working and otherwise planning trips and crazy things like that. So
but honestly, don't feel bad because sometimes there really is no time. I mean, I feel like I've hit my limit of things that I can devote time to between, the relationship and the rental properties and the blog and now this podcast and work and friends and family. It's just like I'm getting pulled in 8 million different directions. So don't feel bad that you don't have a side hustle. That goes to anybody in the audience too. No shame.
Yeah, I know for me, I love having side hustles, and I think it's fun. I'd probably do them even if I didn't get paid because I just like doing different stuff. So it's part of my thing. But, it's something
It's also based a bit on my, work contract in the sense that like in construction, there was really minimal opportunity for like performance-based pay versus now there is. So I do feel like the more effort I put into my day job, I ultimately get rewarded, and therefore it kind of acts as a bit of a side hustle, or at least, some unpromised additions to my FA and ultimately my net worth.
Well, yeah, that makes sense. Like, put in a bit more effort at work and you could get rewarded with like $20,000. Where if you put in a crap ton of work on a side hustle, maybe you end up with $2,000.
Right.
That's so valid. The one argument that I think about sometimes, let's say that your full-time job didn't work out for whatever reason, like reorg or something out of your control. If you have a side hustle, you have like this little lifeline, even if it is just a few $100s a month that you could grow Whereas if you put everything into the career, then it could go away.
Yeah, there's definitely a higher risk.
Yeah. But huge reward, as you mentioned. So I think you said you work in tech and you worked in construction prior to male-dominated fields. Did you notice any difference in how women are interacted with among the two industries?
Not necessarily here in the U.S. I came from engineering. I've always been, since college, in a male-dominated field. I'm not a very girly girl, so I think that helps. Most of my best friends are men, so it's pretty standard operating procedure for me. But I did definitely notice a difference in South America. But here, I don't find any issue. I've never really felt less respected or judged based on being a woman. But every single day, probably 6 times a day, it's usually me and 20 men in a room having a meeting.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, it's very real.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I kind of enjoy being, not to say there's a power trip, but I kind of like being like this powerful woman sometimes. Does anyone else feel that way?
The career-driven woman.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm proud of what I've accomplished, and I think my husband's proud of what I've accomplished.
I would say that my boyfriend is also very proud of the work that I've done. And, I have a not insignificant amount of pride in my own self, too, It's pretty awesome to be where I'm at today just based off of my own work. I can point back to my history and say I'm here where I'm at right now because of me doing all of this work in the past.
Yeah,
it's a good
absolutely.
feeling.
Yeah. While recognizing our privilege, I got to point that out.
While recognizing our privilege.
Yeah.
I definitely feel like I've stumbled into my career. I had no intention of being in construction nor in technology, but it's all been based on the networks I've built and the community I've built around me. And a lot of my coworkers from 2008 I still work with. So we've kind of traveled the world together and then negotiated our careers together, which puts me in a great place. And it means I always have a network of people to lean on and to support me.
And that's huge, because I know in my career, I've had some coworkers that I've been close with, and they've helped me, and in return, I've helped them. And that feels good. Like when someone asks you, hey, can you write me a recommendation? I'm going to school, or can you refer me to your company? I love helping people, and I've been helped too. So it's really important to build those relationships, I think.
Yeah, my network is definitely one of the most coveted parts of my net worth.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to think about it. That's cool.
Yeah.
That whole saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. It's totally true.
All right. So are there any FIRE topics that are generally accepted that you disagree with?
Generally accepted. Not necessarily disagree with, but I do, as we mentioned briefly, mine is not quite the run to retirement, but the run to like the freedom and the flexibility to spend my days how I want. And so even once I hit FI, when I hit like my magical number, I've built this like A+ list. I don't know if others have it or what it's really called, but it's like my extras that are completely unnecessary, but things I think I might keep working for. So like I have, number one is like to have wild and free travel. So to be able to take a lavish and crazy adventures and, dive with whales and do like crazy safaris and things, I think that will need maybe $100,000. And then I calculate how many months that would make me work in addition to FI. And that feels good to me. Or like to be able to pay for my kids' college or to be able to help my family or my husband's family. I've established dollar amounts to each of those and then the amount of weeks or months I would need to work. And I think that's kind of cool because especially once you get into compound interest, it shows how quickly you could establish those extra goals or those like A+ goals and really be able to live without worry.
That's a genius idea. I think I need to do that because I have my stretch goals list as well, but I've never put a dollar figure towards it.
Yeah, it's cool. It's like, okay, maybe I'm willing to come in for a few days to never have to worry about this again.
That's really interesting. Yeah, because I was very lucky to be able to get a full ride scholarship to college for academics. I worked my butt off to get lucky. So I would think it would be really awesome to be able to pay that back in the future. So I could definitely see myself working a little longer to be able to fund that for, 5 years, 10 years, maybe forever, If I win the lottery, it's definitely on the list of things I want to do.
Yeah. I have a scholarship right now, actually, that I
Nice.
provide to people.
Wait, tell us
That's
more
awesome.
about that, because I'm also interested in that.
Yeah, unfortunately, I had a couple friends pass way too young before they finished school. And so everybody was coming up with memorials and nice thoughts or things to do in memory. And a lot of my friends got tattoos or different things. And my dad called me and asked if maybe I wanted to get a bench in the park because he knew I would never get a tattoo. And I also worked my butt off to get lucky and get scholarships to pay for school. And so that was kind of my counter. And I said, I think I'd rather contribute to a scholarship in their name since they never got to finish school. So I worked with my high school, and now every year I do a small scholarship to a couple kids in memory, which I love doing.
That is awesome.
That's awesome. And I think that's something even I remember in high school getting these little scholarships. That's something all of us could do if we just put the time into it and call the school and you could just get it done in pretty quickly. Was it a quick process to do that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I need to do that. I think one of my goals, I want to do a scholarship for college students, but I want it to be not for their actual education, but to fund like travel or to fund a project during the winter semester or during the summer, kind of like an extra thing, maybe even helping people or some type of entrepreneurship venture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's actually what we asked for at our wedding because I had been living independently for years. I didn't need dishes or anything. And so I just had everybody contribute to my scholarship fund, which I thought was good.
Is genius.
That's amazing. Damn it, why didn't I think of that?
Note to self. If I get married in the future. Yeah, nobody needs China. I live in like 500 square feet. I don't even have room for China. I don't have room for dishes.
All right, so Sarah, we're going to ask you our last question, which we ask everybody. What is your wildest dream?
I think my wildest dream would be to be able to travel the world for probably 2 to 3 years with my children before they get into school.
I love that.
But I have to get the husband on board for that.
Yep, for sure. Now, would you guys be in a sailboat or a van or an RV, or would you just travel like normal people? What would be your style of vacation?
I think we would slow travel, but like normal people. So fly somewhere, rent a place, etc.
Cool.
Nice.
That's
I'll
awesome.
go cray cracker.
On a sailing trip in March. So maybe I'll decide that that's, my new life goal.
Oh, that's exciting. Enjoy. Yeah, I got stuck on like van travelers, RV travelers, sailors. I don't know how, but I found all these people on Instagram, so I'm very curious. But I don't see myself fitting my whole life into that small space.
It's stressful.
I like to think about it though. It's an aspirational goal of mine.
I like it.
But yeah, thank you so much, Sarah, for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. Go to our website, firedrillpodcast.com, to continue the discussion and get the link to our private Facebook group.
If you like us, leave us a review on iTunes. If you're like me, you have no idea how to do that. So, in the podcast app or in iTunes, search for Fire Drill Podcast, find it, click the reviews tab, and write something to make my mother proud of me. We read every single review and want to say thank you from the bottom of our hearts for making this podcast possible.